We are about healing from this. We know, we come to understand, or have come to understand that, we cannot force estranged kids into relationships. There's nothing that we can do to force them into relationships. We've tried everything and none of it's worked. And they have to come around if and when they're ready to come around. So there's Heather and Billy and myself as administrators. I help Heather manage the group. Her daughter is still estranged currently. My daughter had been estranged for, a year and a half, I think. And it was terrible. The whole thing was terrible. I hated every minute of it. It was so hard. And I tried everything. I text, I message, I try to have other people help restore the relationship with her. I tried posting on Facebook, on her page. I would post things on my page about how important family was and mothers and whatever. She blocked me on Facebook for a long time, or it felt like probably longer than it was, but it was terrible. And people would say, "Oh, your daughter's doing so well. She's doing this, she's doing that," and I would have to say, I have to take your word for it. I didn't necessarily want to say that she blocked me, because it just felt icky, and I was embarrassed to tell anyone what was going on, because I don't know. I took her blocking me and her estrangement, I took it to mean that I was a bad parent somehow. That's how I took it. And that was the meaning that I assigned to her estrangement, which was not the case at all. I'm not perfect. I've got plenty of flaws. I was very controlling, but I also I made them be independent a lot of times. Like by the time they were in high school, for sure, they were calling to schedule their own doctor appointments or dentist appointments. I would know when it was time, or we'd get reminders or whatever, and I'd say, "Okay, so and so, you need to schedule your doctor appointment. Consider your schedule, and you need to schedule it." But Mom, no. And I gave them responsibilities at early ages. Whereas maybe some of their parents didn't. Maybe some of their parents did everything for them. I don't know, and I can't speak to everyone else's parenting styles. I just know what I did with my kids. And then I also had stepkids that I had to help raise as well. My current husband and I, that's my second husband, and I got married in 2005, and my biological kids were about 2, 6, and 8, I think. If I remember correctly. No, and 10. 2, 6, and 10? I can't remember. My kids were younger. They were still in elementary school. His kids he had one in junior high school, a boy, and one in high school, a boy. And their mom was not around much at all. And so everybody lived together. We all lived together in a house in the suburbs. My 3 and his 2, or our 5, lived together. And we had to manage not to kill each other. There was a lot of emotion going on a lot of the time. There was a lot of drama going on a lot of the time. It felt like everybody was like vying for attention of my husband and I. And my husband was also in the Navy. He's a Navy chief. And so he was active for a long time in the Navy, and then his first wife couldn't handle life at home, so he ended up getting out of the active part, so he wasn't away from home for 6 months at a time, and was in the reserves when I met him. So he would be gone for 2 weeks in the summer and 1 weekend a month. And they didn't, and my stepkids didn't see their mom. So I was the adult in the household with them when their father wasn't around. I'm not their mother. I never tried to be their mother. I just had to make sure they didn't kill each other or somebody else or burn the house down, basically. And my husband and I, our parenting styles were very different as well. He seemed to be really hard on my kids and not on his kids. And I would say something would go on with his kids and he would like defend them like all the time. It was really rough. It was rough. So going back even further, I was married. The first marriage I had two kids. And my daughter was 2 years old and my son was 7 months old when my husband decided he didn't want to be married anymore. So that's the first marriage. And then later on, so I was single parenting, and then later on, I met somebody online in Canada. This is when smart women make dumb decisions. And I had a relationship with him in Canada that ended up in a pregnancy with my youngest son. So my youngest son didn't see his dad very often. The other two went with their dad often, like for his time, like every other weekend kind of thing. And my youngest son stayed with us at home. And then the stepkids were there like all the time, unless they had like orchestra concerts or other things like that, things they were doing with their friends, or, school. So there was a lot of drama going on then, and that's okay. So, I told you my daughter and I were estranged for at least a year and a half, and this is what she had met a boy. She had met someone. They ended up buying a house together, and then they got engaged. And I think my daughter and I estranged. I think I'd written before. It was like we estranged over BLM, over masks, over shots, over gatherings, over you name it. It felt like my daughter was finding reasons to be mad about everything with me. She went to college for 2 years. So, and the deal was that she pays for her college up front, and whatever classes she passes, we will reimburse her half of whatever classes she passes. And we also said that while you are staying at our house, you're gonna have to pay rent. And the deal was $100 a month for the first year, $200 for the second year, $300 for the third year, $400 for the fourth year, like that. So that eventually she would get to the point where she said, well, it probably is less expensive if I get a roommate or get my own place, and I don't have to put up with, mom and stepdad all the time. So she did her 2 years, and she was still living at our house then when she turned 21. So she was with us for at least 3 years, because once she turned 21, then she wanted to make her own hours, and she would come home really late, and she would come home drunk, or she would come home whatever, just doing her own thing. And she didn't help around the house and things like that. She treated it more like a hotel. And at that point, I had to say, I love you, and you're allowed to do whatever you want to do in your own place. I think you'd be happier in your own place with your own comings and goings in your own place. And she was very angry with me then. That was when she was 21. So she's 28 now. So that kind of started it, her anger, besides the fact that we got remarried and there were more kids to have to share with and all that kind of stuff. But then she was really angry because, you know, she said I kicked her out, which kind of I did. I mean, I gave her a choice of, you know, helping out and, you know, being better with the hours, because we still had other kids at home that we had to take care of, and you know, her coming and going and whenever she wanted to was going to be tough. So that was part of it. And you know, maybe you have memories of things that have gone on with your kids that were rough times, or maybe you have memories of times that you know, you should have acted when you didn't, or you didn't act when you should have, or I don't even know. I don't know what I'm saying here. But sometimes now, after she broke up with her fiance, so she bought the house, she got the fiance, and after she broke up with her fiance, then she started coming back around again. One, she needed help moving, and we always help people move. And two, he wasn't around anymore. And so I don't know if he was part of the reason she estranged. He might have been, but that didn't really matter. The reason why she estranged, you know, people choose their own, people decide on their own what they're going to do. You know, there's only so much that, yeah, I'm going north, good. There's only so much that people can influence our kids with. Our kids ultimately make decisions on their own, and they're going to make decisions on their own. And we don't have to like it, we don't have to agree with the decisions, and we don't have to approve of the decisions. But that's not our business or our life. And the thing is, like, once we have raised them to a mature age, and they have had a roof over their head, and they've had habits taught to them, and they, you know, they've been taught all the things to do to be an adult, it's up to them to be an adult, you know, and do their own things. Yes, I know there's kids that have lived with their parents. My sister, my youngest sister, she lived with my mom and dad until she was like 26. Well, when I was 26, I was having my daughter, my first child, and I was already married, and we had a place, and you know, so I understand that there are kids that live with parents till forever, but I don't think that that's how it's supposed to be. And I've learned to like take a curious, not furious view of what they're doing and not doing, and I don't know. It's almost like, you know, I'll be concerned about something. I'll be worried about what they're doing or not doing, and then I could be like, well, wonder what's going to happen. Wonder how things are going to work out. And like when they're having problems, maybe it's a job or the partner or whatever, instead of me jumping in to solve things, I say more like, man, that sounds really hard. Or boy, it sounds like you were pretty angry. And kind of reflect their feelings back and just sit and don't talk. Or or wow. Things like that. And just like with my daughter, I spent so we reconciled. It's a reconciliation, but she's still I don't totally trust her to not do it again. And so I'm not walking on eggshells as much as I am just not allowing her total access to me and my feelings of what I'm doing or saying or things like that. Because I used to, I felt like I was closer to her before, more like a friend, and I don't do that now. So while you are while you may be craving a relationship with your kid again, understand it may not be the same one. And even if you reconcile, it may not be what you're thinking it's going to be or what you're hoping it's going to be. Yeah, so I spent the day after Christmas with my daughter, and we went after Christmas shopping where you get like half off Christmas things. And, I was able to keep it light. I did not dive into any deep conversations, which is really hard for me because I don't really like small talk much. I like big talk about important things. But I was able to keep it light, and we spent the day together, and nobody got really mad. But the times that we are together, there are some times, not every time, there are some times when she'll say something like, oh, do you remember when blah, 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 blah. And I'll be like racking my brains trying to remember that. And so I've learned since then, since the estrangement, and since I've learned about estrangement and reconciliations and how adult children want to be treated, I have learned not to say, oh, that didn't happen. You're remembering it wrong. I don't say that anymore. Even if I can't remember it, I might say, I don't remember that. But I don't say it in a way that's like, well, I don't remember that. I don't say it in a way that they're going to like fight me back on it. But a lot of times now what I'll say is, wow, especially if she says something about, oh, remember when I was X age and we blankety blankety blank. And if I can't remember it, now I just say, when everyone was in the house together at that time, I said it was just a really busy time. It probably happened. I can't remember it, so that she's not getting the message that, I think she's lying, or, I don't want to gaslight her and say, oh, that didn't happen. If she remembers it to be this particular event and facts and whatever, then I'll just respect it, and I'll just say, okay, well, And sometimes for some things I'll be like, oh man, that sounds really sucky. I'm sorry about that. And I will apologize now for what I may have done in the past, and keep it light, and don't get digging, and I don't, I don't put too much into it anymore. But I might apologize and then move on. One thing I realized is I kept calling her by her last name. Like if her last name was Smith, I'd be like, Smith, what do you think of blah, 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 blah. And she doesn't. I had gotten the impression she didn't like it before, but I would do it anyway. And it's like, why would I do that? Why would I keep doing that to somebody if I thought they didn't, if I had an inkling they didn't like it, why would I do that? So I'm making a concerted habit to call her by her name, or I might say Habibi, because her and I used to say that to each other. Oh, Habibi, I'm so sorry, or whatever, which is like means like friend. And why am I telling you guys all this as an estranged parent? Because I have been in your shoes. I have worn them. And I have felt the terrible, 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 terribleness, and the terrible brokenness. I have felt all of that. Most of us have felt all of that. So, you're not alone, and you're going to get through it. But the thing is, you have to decide for yourself whether you want to keep feeling this way or not. And if I were to say this is going to last 2 years, how do you want to spend this 2 years? Do you want to spend it heartbroken, upset, sad, bewildered, wondering, trying to figure things out, thinking, overthinking for 2 years? Do you want to keep doing that? Or would you prefer to feel at peace and living your life, living your best life, doing the things that you enjoy doing, the things that make you feel happy about whatever? Okay? If I said, it's only, let's say I had a crystal ball. I'm like, how long will they be estranged from their son? Looks like a year. Okay, again, if you know it was going to be a year of the estrangement and then something was going to magically happen and you're going to get together again, what kind of person do you want to be during that year? What kinds of things can you do for yourself and your immediate household and your family in that year? How will you change and how will you be different in that year's time? Who do you want to be after a year when you get to reconcile with your child? Now, if I told you that, like I mentioned, I don't know if my daughter is going to stay close again, or if she's going to decide that estrangement's for her. I almost would guess if she gets another boyfriend who, disapproves somehow of my husband and I, that she will do it again. She might. And I have to be ready for letting her go, letting her figure out her stuff, letting her live her life without me in it, physically. I mean, you can't, it's hard to run away from your mother, but I have to be ready for that. I have to be ready to say, okay, here you go. And the thing is too, like, I put that 2-question poll. You know, what do you want? Do you want to be happy, or do you want your child to be happy? Which one is it going to be? Because your child right now does not want a relationship with you. Your child right now is happy without you right now. But you, as a parent, if you want to be happy, then you would want to force your child into relationship with you somehow. Force them, manipulate them, guilt trip them, whatever it might be. Have someone else intervene, whatever it might be. For you to be happy, you want to make them do what you want to do so that you can be happy. But the thing is, you assume that that's the only way you can be happy. You assume that their presence, their active relationship with you in your life is the only way that you can be happy. And that's a very dangerous assumption. That's a very, very dangerous assumption. Because if this person in your life is an active relationship, is a loving relationship, is the only way for you to be happy, then you're probably going to be miserable the rest of your life if they don't reconcile with you. Do you want that? You know, is that something you want to live with for the rest of your life? Do you want to rely on other people to make you happy? What if you rely on your spouse to make you happy? What if you rely on your dog or your horse? What if you rely on your job to make you happy? And those things go away or they change or whatever. Then what do you do? If you want your child to be happy and they say, don't contact me, then you don't contact them because you'd want your child to be happy, right? And again, this is for estranged parents. This is for estranged parent relationships. You have to decide, whose happiness whose happiness do you want? They can't make you happy. You are the only one that can make you happy by your thoughts, and then your feelings, and then your actions. That's it. It was weird let's see. Oh, at one point, my daughter, it looked like she had a very large friend group. This is when she was with her ex-fiance. And a lot of those friends came from him and his friend group. So it looked like they were all having a great old time. And, and I would get a little jealous. Because she would be spending a lot of time with them and not me. And, I'd get a little jealous. I'll admit it. And since she's broken up with her fiance, there's not that friend group anymore. They all were his friends and don't spend time with her now. And a girl that she thought was her best friend ended up doing something that really upset her, and so she's not friends with them anymore. So she doesn't have a lot of girlfriends right now. She's got some, but not a whole lot. And she had to go through some grieving about that as well. So, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm almost home, so I'm almost done. So ultimately, no matter what, the only side of the street we're responsible for is our own side. That's it. We are not responsible for them and their feelings and their actions or inactions. We are not responsible for their communication or non-communication. We're not responsible for their wife or children or in-laws or whatever. We're not responsible for any of their situations. We are only responsible for our situations, our home, and our immediate family. That's it, our side of the street. So, if they decide to be a jerk, we're responsible for deciding whether we're going to meet jerk with jerk, or whether we're going to meet jerk with, not today. Are we going to take nasty calls? Are we going to read nasty texts or emails? Are we going to bother with people telling us what our estranged kids are up to? Because if they are informing you, oh, did you know so-and-so is doing such and such? And they know your situation is that they've estranged from you, and they're telling you what your kid is doing, they're not your friends. Those are people that thrive on gossip. And they're not your friends. And guaranteed, if they're talking about that estranged child to you, when they already know the situation, if they're talking about that kid to you, they're talking about you too. And they're likely talking about you to the estranged kid. Because those are the kinds of people that do that. They're not your friends. They're not your friends. With my daughter estranging and my stepson estranging, there was also my sister and brother-in-law estranging, which also was my nephew and niece. So I hadn't seen them in, it's like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, something like that. And it's terrible because the sister that estranged was one of my younger sisters. She's 12 years younger than me. So she was almost like a child to me. Like I was almost like her mom, like a second mom. And then my youngest sister was 14 years younger than me. So again, I was like her mom as well. And for a time, both sisters were estranged. And then I haven't gotten to see my niece and nephew for a long time. And then when my youngest sister estranged, then I didn't get to see my nephew for a long time. Or it felt like a long time. It's probably, 6 months, I think. And then she kind of came back around. And then my brother and sister-in-law in another state, estranged. Like, it all, like, everyone, it all, like, took a dump. Like, all at one time. And also, like, along those times, my grandpa died, and my grandma died, and my mom died, and one of the stepsons died. The youngest stepson died. And, like, and I was like, what is going on? What is going on here? So, if you've never been through, like, big life things like death of a loved one or breakups or divorces or things like that, I mean, there's a certain kind of clarity that ends up happening where I don't care now what I say. I don't monitor what I say. If I've got an opinion, I'll say it. Usually I try to be loving about it, but I've reached the point where, listen, life is short. Life is short. And really, if they're hanging out with people they want to be around, then you should be hanging out with people you want to be around. If they don't want to be around you, then accepting it is the fastest way to get over it. You have to get over it. You got to go through it. You got to feel it. You got to feel the sadness, the anger, the disappointment, the whatever. Don't let it change into bitterness. If you hang on to that, the negative feelings for too long, it changes to bitterness and resentment. And you don't want to live a life of bitterness and resentment and hate. It just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. So the quicker that you can accept that it happened without trying to change it or manipulate the outcome or change the outcome, the sooner you let them have space, like they ask, the more they can see that you are respecting what they're asking for, you know? If you said to me, Tam, stop calling me at 5:30 in the morning. I'm not a morning person. And I kept calling you at 5:30 in the morning, and I ignored what you said, you get pretty mad at me. If your kids told you, don't text me, don't call, don't stop by, and you call, or you text, or you stop by, then you're not listening to what they said. And they don't feel heard because they're not being heard. Because the desires that you have and the wants that you have, your happiness, you're more concerned about that than you are about theirs. And a funny thing happens when you shift your focus away from the kids and you start shifting it to your life. And what have you really wanted to do with your life for so long? Or what's a dream that you've had, or a hobby that you've had, or a passion that you wanted to pursue and you just hadn't done it yet? When you start doing that, you become an interesting person. And the people around them who are friends with you or know about you or whatever, or see what you're doing, and you're putting good, happy, sunshiny stuff on your social media posts, and you're doing this and doing that. For example, I started a gardening business. I love it. It's so fun, and I get to pour all my energy into that. And my clients' gardens, and I get to go shopping for them and all this kind of other stuff. Now I'm kind of interesting. So the people around them and around you that see you doing these things, they start asking the kid, oh my gosh, have you seen what your mom has done lately? Wow, your mom's doing really well at that business or whatever. And this isn't to manipulate. Again, it's not to manipulate, but it's because you're becoming an interesting person. You're doing things out of the ordinary. It's something a little different. Wait a minute, mom has changed? Mom is changing? Why? What is going on? And they become curious, right? Oops, back up a little bit. They become curious about what's going on. Why is mom changing? Why is dad changing? What is going on? Because we're supposed to. We're supposed to. We've got chapters in life. We're raised, and then we raise kids, and they fly away, and then we get to a different chapter. It's different chapters in life. We